Hello everyone. Welcome to the lecture on how to write a research abstract. My name is Rennie Ching and I am a Senior Research Fellow at the Program in Global Surgery and Social Change, PGSSC, at Harvard Medical School. In today's lecture, we will cover the types of titles and abstracts. We will learn to write a research title, learn to write a research abstract, and a title page. There are two types of abstract. The first type is an abstract that you submit to a conference for an oral or poster presentation. These are often written before the manuscript, and it is a chance to share your research whilst it is in progress. The purpose of the abstract is to sell your research project to the selectors at the conference so that your oral or poster presentation can get picked. The second type of abstract is one that precedes a manuscript and that one that you find on PubMed. It is a brief summary of the manuscript, and this is usually written after the paper is already completed. Important things to remember before you start writing the abstract is that the abstract is a marketing tool, and most people will only read the abstract without the manuscript itself. It is always a good idea to check the guidelines for the conference or the journal for the word count, as well as other requirements such as the structure and the required subheadings of the abstract. If you're writing an abstract for a conference, it will be written before the manuscript is written. However, if you're writing an abstract for a manuscript, most of the time, the title and the abstract should be written after the manuscript is written so that the abstract can summarize everything in the manuscript. Here we can see the recommended order of writing of different parts of a manuscript. A good title precedes a good abstract. The title will be read first and also most. The title should summarize the manuscript's main messages, and it should cover these key areas in the table here. What is the study about? What is the study design? Who or what is studied? And what were the results? A combination of answers to these questions can form a good title. An example is given here. For example, the title of this paper is Antibiotic Therapy is Non-Inferior to Surgery for Uncomplicated Appendicitis, Results from a Multi-Center Randomized Control Trial. So this title covers the answer for all of the 4 questions listed above in the table. In terms of the format of the title, it can be phrased as a question or as a statement. And titles often have subtitles, which can list the geographic scope. For example, a study in Haiti, the temporal scope, for example, 2001 to 2010, or the methodology, for example, a clustered randomized controlled trial. There can be 4 types of titles. An explanatory title is the most common, and it is often required by journals. An explanatory title sets up the message, but it doesn't deliver the full message of the paper and may not contain the results. An example is Operative Volume and Surgical Case Distribution in Uganda's Public Sector, a stratified randomized evaluation of nationwide surgical capacity. And here we can see the subtitle in this title is the study design of the paper. A declaratory title is different from an explanatory title in that the title is the message and this delivers the key result of the paper. An example is, injury to admission delay beyond 4 hours is associated with worsening outcomes for traumatic brain injury in Cambodia. An interrogatory title is a question that will be answered with the message of the manuscript. An example is, Who is Pirating Medical Literature? A bibliometric review of 28 million Sci-Hub downloads. The paper could also have a catchy title, and this could make use of wordplay or humor. However, this needs to be appropriate. And this could be quite obvious, or it could be more subtle. An example could be Medical Missions, Mission Accomplished or Mission Impossible. And another example could be Stuck in the Middle, a systematic review of authorship in collaborative health research in Africa. A subtly catchy title could be a good idea. However, a more obviously catchy title with a lot of humor may not be appropriate for some journals and should be used carefully. Other tips for titles include keeping the word count below 22 words, avoiding any abbreviations and instead writing them out in full, and avoiding redundant phrases such as an analysis of. Studies have shown that article titles that receive more citations tend to be short. They are not interrogatory, so they are not questions, but rather are statements. And they tend to receive more citations if they state the geographic restriction of their study in their title. So now we move on to talk about abstracts from talking about the title. Before writing the abstract, it is important to understand that the abstract is a chance to make a first impression, and it should summarize the key messages of the paper. As mentioned before, it is always a good idea to check the journal or the conference for specifications that they require for the abstract in terms of word limit. And for most journals and conferences, this will be between 200 to 300 words. The abstract can be structured or unstructured. An unstructured abstract is a single paragraph with no headings, and a structured abstract has separate sections with headings. For example, introduction, methods, results, and conclusion. And again, it's good to check the specification of the journals, as different journals may have requirements for different headings. Generally, a structured abstract will follow this structure. It starts with a background or objective section, and this section allows the reader to judge why the paper is important, and it states the primary objective or aim of the paper, which is the research question. This section is normally short and is normally only 1 to 2 sentences. This is followed by the methods section, which should summarize the study design and the main methods, and this should correspond to the results in the abstract. This section should normally be 2 to 3 sentences. The results section should state the main results, and this should give sufficient results in order to make the conclusion of the study valid, and this should be 2 to 3 sentences. Ideally, if any results is mentioned in the results section, then their method of analysis should also be mentioned in the method section to correspond to it. The abstract ends with a conclusion section, and this delivers the main message of the paper and should also be relatively short at 1 to 2 sentences. An effective abstract should have the following qualities. In terms of content, it should convince the readers of the relevance of the aim, the importance of findings, and the validity of the conclusion. In terms of its style, it should be well written, easy to read, and it should contain correct spelling and grammar. If anyone has access to Grammarly, this can often be quite a good tool in terms of checking spelling and grammar in academic writing, such as abstracts and manuscripts. Other Other tips for writing a good abstract are not to waste words on the introduction. The introduction can be fairly short, and it can be 1 to 2 sentences, as we stated in the previous table. Secondly, make sure that the methods section is detailed enough and that this corresponds to the results section. Thirdly, use clear, accurate statistics. And fourthly, be realistic in the conclusion and don't draw any conclusion that you cannot be confident about with the results. Often, I find it quite useful to check the abstracts of similar papers that have already been published in the literature. And often, it's quite good to use the same structure as the previously published abstracts. And this always gives me quite a good guide when I'm trying to write my own abstract for my paper as to what to include and what not to include in my abstract. Lastly, we'll come to the title page, and this applies to the setting in which you are writing a manuscript. A title page is not required when you submit an abstract to conferences. So you've written your title, your abstract, and now it's time to write the title page. And again, before you start, it's always a good idea to check the specification of the journal as to what they require on the title page. But usually, for most journals, they would require the title, a list of all the authors in their correct order, a list of the addresses and affiliations of all authors, and an indication of which author will be the corresponding author, along with their email address and their contact phone number. Most journals also require the word count of the entire manuscript to be stated on the title page, and also a list of keywords. And we will now talk about keywords in a bit more detail. Journals and conferences always ask for keywords when you submit an abstract. And keywords are a list of 3 to 5 words that will make sure that your paper reaches the appropriate audience. They can be placed on the title page, the abstract page, or on the online system when you use online portals to submit abstracts for conferences. Anytime that a reader enters words into the search engine, the journal or conference website will match what the reader is searching for with your keywords. So well-selected keywords can make sure that the paper reaches the appropriate and relevant audience. The keywords can be related to the topic of research, the methods, or the population studied. And it is a good idea to match the keywords to mesh terms so that when the paper gets PubMed indexed, mesh terms can be made easily from the keywords. So here are some examples of keywords. For a paper that's titled Effectiveness of a Multi-Component Safe Surgery Intervention on Improving Surgical Quality in Tanzania's Lake Zone, Protocol for a Quasi-Experimental Study. The keywords in this study are surgical quality, surgical site infection, sepsis, surgical safety checklist, and data quality. Another example is also listed below. The title of the study is Novel Programs of Using Village Health Workers in Early Detection and Awareness of Head and Neck Cancer, Audit of a Community Screening Program. The keywords for this paper are head and neck cancer prevention, oral self-examination, village health workers, and cancer project. Again, if you're not sure which keywords to use, it's always a good idea to check previously published papers in your topic and to think about what are the unique aspects of your study and which readers would you like to attract using the keywords to read your study. In summary, In today's lecture, we've spoken about the four different types of titles. We've talked about two different types of abstract, one that you submit to conferences and one that you write at the start of the manuscript. We've talked about how to write a research title, how to write a research abstract, as well as a title page. I hope that you will put these skills into use in writing your manuscript. And remember again, if you feel stuck at any point, just check previous examples of published papers in a topic that's similar to your study. Thank you for your time.